So I wanted to start this vlog off saying I'm not normally that type of player. For me, this wargaming thing, and in this case we're talking about Battletech, it's about the narrative. I mean, I've sunk a lot of time into building, painting, collecting, planning on the tabletop with my friends, with my opponent, with the community. I want to step out of space and time. I want to do something unique. Like my idol Maximus, are you not entertained? That's what we're striving for. So I normally don't approach a game based from the perspective of a rules lawyer or trying to just spam the ultimate meta. But I think it's important to be aware of these things because there are many ways to enjoy a war game. Maybe that's how you want to approach it. That's cool. But likewise, however you're approaching it, to be aware of it. Because the worst thing that can happen, the thing that is so disheartening is you show up expecting one type of game, and then 2 or 3 turns in, you realize it's a different type of game. Bringing a narrative list versus bringing a competitive list. So pushing into that, take this tactica for your toolkit in whatever way that you are. We're talking about stress points in a rule system. And in this vlog, we're going to look at Battletech specifically. This is not a criticism of Battletech. Battletech actually has less stress points compared to, say, other games like Warhammer 40K. But ultimately, every war game is a simulation. We're trying to make something in this narrative happen on the tabletop. And the rules not only define what you can and can't do, but they dictate the fog of war and the unknown. Now, at the highest level, I believe 40K, just to kind of sidebar for a second, the first edition of Warhammer 40,000 was actually called Rogue Trader. And the way the game was set up is it assumed, for the most part, that you had a GM, a game master, playing it. So units would be hidden and reveal. They'd introduce special rules as needed. They'd facilitate the battle. That is an awesome way to play because these stress points can be lessened or avoided. But if it's you and I playing against a static rule set, stress points are places in a game where the simulation bogs down. It slows down a little bit. And if you're willing to overload it, if you're willing to literally stress it, it gives you an advantage. Now, this is not arguing. Actually, we're playing WYSIWYG, and my mech standing over there is obscured by a small little stone that's counted as rough terrain, so I get cover +1. It's not arguing back and forth whether it's a side arc or not, or it's none of that aside. These are legitimate rules as the game is intended to be played. So we're kind of putting it out there. And of course, you can decide how to combat that stress point, how to take advantage of that stress point, or, in all fairness, how to house rule it. And some of you have. So the big stress point in Battletech, initiative. Initiative, one of the greatest features of Battletech, is also something that could potentially or unintentionally be exploited. Battletech is an alternating system. It's not a you go, I go, which is interesting because in the 80s, the genesis of Battletech, this was the height of the you go, I go system based on historical gameplay. I set up my toys, I hang out, you do all your stuff, and then I go. Battletech is we activate based on initiative back and forth, with the idea being, and it takes a little bit getting used to for those of you new, because it's like, wait, I won something, I won initiative, but I don't go first, because it gives you a chance to react to your opponent. It represents that shift. But I move a piece, or depending on how many there are, a number of pieces. We go back and forth, and then we go into the shooting phase and the physical phase. Initiative, this is why if you have 4 mechs, let's just do classic Lance versus Lance. And you could begin to see what a big deal this is. You have 4 mechs, I have 4 mechs. Initiative is about equal, which means I am going to, if I lose initiative, I'm going to be trailing by 1 mech, which means I'm going to move my last piece, and then you get to react. You get to finish your move last. As soon as you lose a mech, 4 versus 4, just to make it easy, that's massive, because now if I lose the initiative, there's multiple pieces moving, which is why as you start taking losses in Battletech and losing initiative, there is a reason for that mobile HQ, for the battle value buy-in. Then, a side note, playing on a hidden campaign, next upcoming hidden campaign, where we have support units. I'm going to have some coolant trucks, and I'm going to have a mobile HQ variant. I'm going to sneak an AC-20 in there. I think my opponent's going to suspect it because I love the big guns, but if they try to make a move to capture the mobile HQ, they're going to eat that AC-20. I'm hoping for the lulls. I'm hoping they just don't shoot it at long range. But on a side note, there are ways to help boost your initiative, but losing initiative is big, especially as you take losses. So here's the stress point. Initiative sinks. Taking lots and lots because when we move, it doesn't matter battle value. And these are core rules, not house rules. If I have an Atlas and you have, what's like the cheapest thing? Savannah Master, something like that. The battle value, it's one initiative each. You get to choose what you want to move. So if you have infantry stands, if you have cheap vehicles, you want to move the big boys last. You want to move the mechs last, your powerhouses last, to get side armor, to get rear, to get optimals, to stay out of firing arcs. So with certain builds and combined arms, not intentional. I mean, I usually play 8 to 10 stands of infantry, multiple tanks, multiple infantry. That means I can move my infantry pieces first. Does it really matter if I lose initiative? And it's also a cushion in that if a mech or two, if they do go down, and as I start to lose the initiative sink, the initiative track, I'm not burning mechs. I still have infantry that I can burn. It's a cushion. This is a stress point in the game. The rules are attempting to simulate things, and they do things well. They do a good job. But as soon as you overload that, or as soon as you look to exploit it, the game potentially unravels. And again, there are massive, there's probably about 6 or 7 stress points that are exploitable in Battletech. 40K last count, I counted about 30. No joke. And the game that has the least is Chain of Command out of the systems that I play. So I say that for a frame of reference in that this is not unique. So what do you do with this knowledge? Let's kind of finish that out. You're aware of it. You might choose to exploit it. You might choose to house rule it. A lot of players, much like air support, kind of shift that to a different phase. You can shift initiative entirely to a phase. Infantry. Or you can say all infantry move. Literally the chain of command issues the orders. They all move because they're fluid. There are ways around it to play with your partner to be fair. And I will say, on a side note, if I was showing up to play at a random game and I brought this list and my opponent was like, it's a little bogus, man, because I'm not intentionally trying to game the system, but if they felt that, I would be fine with saying, look, I'll count all my infantry as one sink, to move it. There are ways to adjust it, and I'm fluid with it. But looking at these stress points, it's not to game for advantage. It's to realize there are places where the simulation slows down a little bit. And we can choose to take advantage of that, or we can choose to prepare for it or be aware of it. So if someone is trying to pull some shenanigans and trying to gain that advantage, you at least have a tactical counter for it.